Okay, we are going to get started with the meeting. Want to welcome everybody tonight to the community development portion of the meeting. We do have 3 items on the agenda, and the first item is the approval of the regular CD meeting minutes from July 26th.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 2 is the matter of a dedication plat for Reeser Point Crossing. Engineer Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council should have received a copy of the plat for the Reeser Point Crossing. It's a new road that connects the Chestnut Commons drive over to East Broad Street. I don't know if your screens are on by chance, but I did put up on the screen here a location showing currently where it shows this is at Walmart. As you can see, the construction is complete. It was built to city standards. So the road comes essentially from the connector road and wraps around and heads north to East Broad Street. It's a 3-lane road with a 2-way left turn lane in the middle. It's built on a 60-foot right-of-way, and I believe the road is 32 feet wide, and it has all the signage and pavement markings on it. And there's a traffic light here at East Broad Street. But so today we're here to get council to approve to accept this road so that we can move forward later on with opening it when that time comes.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Schneider. Certainly appreciate that. I do know that we're here just to dedicate the road. However, I'm going to go off topic just a moment. Could you just please update us in regards to safety issues that have been brought up in the local paper in regards to the new road? Just if you can just touch on that, please.
And through you, Mr. Chair, Engineer Schneider, I would be happy to fill in the blanks on anything that you don't have in front of you. For the record, I would just note that when Planning Commission reviewed this on August 16th, the fire marshal, firefighter Gall, had no conditions in his report on this matter. Obviously, would make sense, comes with the territory. The fire marshal weighs in on safety issues. I would note that this project was completed to all the Ohio Department of Transportation engineering specs and also city engineering standards as well. And each of you on the committee have a copy of the meeting minutes which reflect that as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak? Yes, sir. If you'd like to speak, just please come up to this microphone and state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Take this off?
That's your choice.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is this.
Yeah, let's get a look.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Cuppage. I'm an attorney at the McCarthy, Levitt, Crystal, and Lifman law firm, and I represent DBR Commercial Realty LLC, which is the developer in this case and is the property owner that this road intersects and divides our property in half. I'm here to suggest and request to this committee that you not accept the dedication and you not accept the plat as dedicated, and that you table this discussion for further review. The developer does in fact have numerous concerns about dedicating this plat and opening this road. It is our submission, it is our contention, it is our position that there are errors and omissions with the design of the connector road and the storm sewer public improvements in general. And I also wanted to submit to you that the developer has studies, engineering studies, that demonstrate that there is substantial flooding and stormwater management design issues, and that the stormwater management design system is not working. The road design was made higher than necessary with a detrimental impact on the land to be developed and a detrimental impact on the roadway itself. The road was built to final unapproved plans. The developer did not approve.
Through you, Mr. Chair, with all due respect, and to you as well, Attorney Cuppage, we're not going to litigate this case here in this public forum, and this matter is solely on the agenda to discuss dedicating these city-owned parcels. So I would ask that you, on behalf of my client, the committee, that you would restrict your comments to that. Thank you.
Well, let me restrict my comments then to the safety issues that we believe are readily apparent with respect to the design of this roadway. I think, as you know, the roadway is 4 to 5 feet elevated above the property. I think, as the city is well aware and as the administration is well aware, it causes substantial flooding on the side
Through you,
property.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to object to that. There's been no evidence shown. And again, this is a matter for litigation, not for a public hearing, to dedicate these city-owned parcels.
I think it's a matter for both. I think all you have to do is go out to the property and see it, particularly when it's raining, particularly after a rain event. And I think if the argument is that flooding on the side, on the property which this road intersects is not a safety issue and it's not an issue or a concern of this administration, then please go ahead and say so. But there is no elevation, there's elevation issues, there are no guardrails, there are no lights, and it is our contention that this does in fact create a safety issue. There's flooding issues, and there's also issues with respect to the detention ponds. There's nothing protecting drivers if they, God forbid, are caused to leave the road, if they swerve off the road from going into the detention ponds. They're unprotected, and I think all of these things do in fact constitute safety issues, and I think that these ought to be considered. I would also submit that there are no, as far as I know, as far as I've seen, and we've requested public records, there are no safety studies that were done by independent engineers that would evaluate the roadway for safety concern issues that we're raising. I think the city was well aware of the issues that pertain to the safety issues that we're raising. I think the city was aware of the stormwater management issues and the flooding. And I would certainly submit that flooding issues are public safety issues that ought to be considered. And I think that the city ought to take a little more time and study these issues with an independent, third-party, neutral engineers and look at this from a safety perspective. We would also simply submit that our complaint in this case, in the case that we filed against the city, for all those reasons, the city ought to not dedicate the plat.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate that. Were there any comments made in that anybody would like to address? Okay. Are there any other questions from anyone on the panel? I'm sorry. Mrs. Davis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the gentleman just there, David, I didn't catch his last name. Is he an engineer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Attorney Cuppage represents Mr. Reeser's company, DBR.
Oh,
I'm sure he can fill you in on his engineering background.
Okay.
I'm not familiar.
But the thing of it is, of course, we're not here for that. So my other question is, does he have any proof of he's making this statement against us does he have proof of what he is saying?
Answer that question. You can bring our engineers before this.
But,
At this time, I'd like to ask Law Director Deary, these issues will be addressed at some point in the future, if you can kind of outline the future as this goes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can tell you that this matter, the matters of flooding issues on Mr. Reeser's company's property are being litigated. The issues of the city parcels upon which this road is located went to Planning Commission on August 16th. These matters were discussed and evaluated by the various members of the Planning Commission, and our city engineer has weighed in on them, as well as our consultants. And I don't want to put words in Mr. Schneider's mouth, but they are confident that this road has been built, again, according to all safety and structural specifications from the Ohio Department of Transportation, as well as city internal requirements.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, comments from anyone on the panel? Mr. Schneider, did you have anything more you'd like to add?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay. Seeing there's no more questions, no more comments, I will read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the dedication plat for Reeser Point Crossing. This is an ordinance authorizing the approval of the said dedication plat. This was approved by Planning Commission on August 16th, 2021 with no conditions. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
second,
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
question.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item 3 is the matter of a final plat for 4 Seasons at Chestnut Ridge, Phase 3. We have Secretary Ballard here.
I will cover that.
I'm sorry, go right ahead,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Schneider.
I was just trying to zoom out to the location here for a second, just to give you an idea of where we're at. Oh. Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. What we have before you today is Phase 3 for the 4 Seasons at Chestnut Ridge. This is the final phase for that subdivision, which council, if you remember correctly, previously approved the overall layout of. I guess right here in front of you on the screen, you see Phase 2. Phase 3 is the long cul-de-sac that goes toward the eastern portion and butts up to Ridgeville. Planning Commission did approve the plat for this. There was a stipulation in the Planning Commission approval. The original plat had there's a little cul-de-sac off of the main road through there. It was labeled Rosewood Drive, which we already have a Rosewood in the city, and the proponent was directed to change the name. He changed the name, and then a resident out there objected to the name because they didn't like it. So they decided to change it one time. They did the developers stated that they are willing to change it to a different name, which was, they decided it was Single Oak opposed to Shingle Oak. That was the name before. So the development is pretty much completed out there. It's being built to our standards. We do have a agreement and bond in place to cover any costs if they don't complete it to our standards. So at this time, I would ask that council would approve this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schneider. Are there any questions? Mr. Oswald?
In the first two phases, have we had any issues with doing business with these people? Thank you.
With every development, you have some issues here and there. Some of the things have been grading issues. We've had to go back and redo some portions of the road where it cracked because they put an excavator on it, which they shouldn't have. And so there's things like that, and they are being taken care of as part of those phases. But they have worked with us the entire time, and they continue to work with us because they have another subdivision they're looking to build on the south side, so.
Go ahead.
They're working with us. Unbelievable. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone on the panel? Okay, seeing none, I will read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the final plat for Four Seasons at Chestnut Ridge, Phase 3. This is an ordinance authorizing the approval of the final plat for Phase 3 of the said subdivision. The plat was approved by Planning Commission on April 6th. Any and all outstanding conditions have been met. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. At this time, I'd ask Mr. Stewart to please call finance for a joint meeting with community development.
I'll call finance to order.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. We have 5 items on the agenda for tonight. The first item is the approval of the July 26, 2021 Joint Community Development Finance Meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell, seconded by Mr. Sarah.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 2 is a public hearing. The matter of fiscal year 2022 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan Update. Public hearing notice, City of Elyria, August 30th, 2021, 6 p.m. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held on Monday, August 30th, 2021, in Elyria City Council Chambers, Elyria City Hall, 131 Court Street, Elyria, Ohio, at 6 p.m. concerning the city's fiscal year 2022 Community Development Block Grant Program and Consolidated Plan Annual Update and Analysis of Impediments Update for 2022. The purpose of the public hearing is to obtain views of citizens on the city's community development and housing needs, and to provide an opportunity for citizens' participation to determine the community development and housing activities for which assistance will be sought. Do I have any proponents? Director Scott.
Thank you. This is the first of the 3 public hearings that we're going to have concerning the CDBG 2022 annual allocation and the update to the 5-year plan, as well as the annual update to our analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. The final allocation has not been set for the 2022 program year, so for budgeting purposes this year, we're going to do what we normally do and use the prior year allocation, which is at about $756,000. To give you an update on the 2021 funding, to date, we have encumbered and/or expended 16% in administration. The public facility storm sewer project is currently in process, and that is anticipated to be complete by the end of the year. 30% in housing rehab, 26% in code enforcement, and 98% in the public service activities. The city completed its annual report to HUD. HUD did indicate that the city continues to perform in a timely manner. We meet our program thresholds. We were under our public service cap of 15% for the 2020 CDBG program year, as well as we were under our 20% cap in admin. The amount of funding for the prior year program income resulted in minimum 70% low to moderate income benefit. And lastly, the city anticipated about $35,000 in program income, so we met the threshold of the estimate with HUD in that. We did mail out funding requests within the past couple of days to various organizations. They are going to be posted on the city's website tomorrow. Those funding requests are due October 1st at noon. We're going to hold a informational meeting on September 8th at 5 o'clock for anybody who's interested in applying. At that time, we're going to go over the application, and we will be there to answer any questions or concerns that people may have if they choose to apply. Our second public hearing is scheduled at a joint Community Development and Finance Committee meeting on October 11th. At that point, we're going to discuss any funding requests that we received. The third public hearing will be held October 25th at another joint meeting, and at that point, we will go over the budget. And that's when I'll bring up the Excel spreadsheet, and you can discuss how you want to spend the funds. After that meeting, we will put the plan out for a 30-day public comment period. Those dates are set from October 29th to November 29th. And that evening, we will, make you aware of any public comments that were received. You have the opportunity to make any budget amendments that you would like, and we would ask for committee consideration at that meeting so that it can go to the next full council meeting, which would be December 6th. We have to anticipate that we have to submit the plan to HUD January 15th. But as it has been for the past few years, they may have us delay that submission depending on the federal budget. And I'm here to answer any questions or concerns.
Okay, thank you, Director Scott. Are there any questions from anyone on either committee or anyone on the panel?
Through you, sorry, October 11th is a holiday, so that should be October 12th, yeah.
Very good, I'm glad you
Sorry,
caught that. I was going to say something. Okay, yeah. Like I said, are there any questions from anyone on the panel? Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, not a question as much as it is a comment. Every year we say we are not going to take any late submissions. We mean it this time for real. We are not taking any late submissions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. You're jogging our memory, so we appreciate that. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from anyone, or any questions from Director Scott? Okay, seeing none, are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Seeing none, I declare that this public hearing has been held. Thank you. Okay, item 3 is the matter of a renewal of the Horizon Educational Center agreement with East Recreation Center. It's a standing referral. Parks and Rec Director Reardon.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So this is at East Recreation Center. It'll be the same agreement. That's what they're asking for, the same agreement as was put in place last year. no changes. They're going to start up, so their school year calendar, so if the school's not in, then their program is not in session. They are asking that we keep the time because of the possibility, nobody knows, but virtual learning, they would like to keep it in the agreement that they could possibly start at noon if the school district does need to go to virtual learning. I didn't see that being a problem. It doesn't interfere with anything else going on at the rec center. So other than that, like I said, same as last year, they'll offer their after-school educational program. Our plan is to bring back our open rec program and kind of have the recreation side of it there. So in 19, those two programs worked really, really well together. We were kind of a feeder program for them, so we do expect their numbers to go back up after, they dipped down a little bit last year due to the virtual, learning of the students. But I would take any questions if anybody has any.
Okay, thank you, Director Reardon. Are there any questions, Mr. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Director Reardon, thank you so much. When this came up a year and a half ago, we had an issue with it because we didn't have somebody in place to take care of all the details, make sure the contracts were done accurately and brought to council. So thank you very much for that, and also thank you for a fantastic job, you and all of your staff, this entire summer.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Are there any other questions or comments from either committee?
Director Reardon, what is the approximate monthly rent or the usage of there? Is there a fee that's been determined previously on this?
Yes, and I apologize, I don't have it. I want to say it's $24.75 per month that Horizon pays. It's right around $2,500.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments? Okay. Seeing none, I will read the committee report. We've considered the matter of a renewal agreement with Horizons Educational Centers to utilize the city's East Recreation Center. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into said renewal agreement. Can I get a motion from Community Development?
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mr. Jesse.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from Finance?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet,
Second.
second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, I see Mrs. Reardon is still there, so we got another one for her. Item 4 is the matter of establishing an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club to utilize the South Recreation Center for after-school programming. This is a standard referral. Go right ahead, Director Reardon.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So this is for the Boys and Girls Club, would like to use South Recreation Center for a program similar to Horizon, not the same exact because they each kind of follow different outline, but overall it would be the same. Again, they would follow the school year calendar. Boys and Girls Club, I don't know if you guys got the attachment that I did send from Tony from the Boys and Girls Club. It kind of outlines it a little bit more detail what they offer. They typically go more towards teens, whereas Horizon does the K through eighth graders. So their programs are slightly different. But again, their program also Monday through Friday. He did ask for 2 to 6, but I told him that he would have to be done at 5 because we do have other programming that comes into South at that time, and he said that would not be a problem. They would be very happy with anything that we could, give them. I will say that the big difference in the two is the Boys and Girls Club is asking that there be no cost for their use of the building. In the past, they have used the building and we have utilized their summer food program. They had also done a summer basketball camp for us as part of our summer camp options. In 2019, we did not use their summer food program because it was not consistent. We could not rely on them, so we did start going with the school district summer food program because they were a bit more reliable. We knew the food was going to be there. So yeah, that's what they're asking. So I'd be, happy to have a discussion or any questions, anything like that about their ask.
Thank you, Director Reardon. Are there any questions? Law Director Deary.
Through you, Mr. Chair, one comment that I have is that even should the committee and ultimately council approve that this would be, that there would be no money exchanged, we would, my department would recommend that this would be at least, a use agreement with a nominal fee of even $1, rather than it be a donation of the space that, and we would, that would be our legal recommendation to council.
Thank you, Law Director Deary. Are there any other questions or comments from either member or all members from either committee?
Ms. Reardon?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan. So in regards to the trade-off that was having for the foods, was that expressed to the Boys and Girls Club in regards to, maybe not on a timely basis, or the situations that were arising, that the inconsistencies that we were having with them, and now we're here trying to engage into this contract with them. We want to help them out, but what was that conversation and how did that end up?
Yeah, I mean, we talked with them that summer, obviously, because we're in the middle of camps as far as needing it there on time. And I believe it kind of came down to a staffing issue for them then. And again, just when we, made that decision for the next year, we just felt like we couldn't have that inconsistency, with the food. I mean, it was literally some days it wasn't there, at all. And that's a service that we offered with the camp. So that's when we went with the school district program, and it was very consistent, and that's why we went with them again this year. Not to say that we wouldn't give them a chance again. My personal opinion, I don't know if they expanded too much. They really added a lot of locations the one year, so I don't know if that was, logistics was part of it, getting the food. And, I talked with Tony, and I apologize, I don't know the girl that's underneath him that's going to be running it. We've actually had 2 meetings, and, we talked about possibly other things that they could do, whether it's, continuing with that basketball camp during the summer, offering other programming for us. So I do believe there are things that we could work out, so it's not just, here's a rec center, here you go kind of thing. There are things that they could bring to the table as far as programming and things like that throughout the year that we could utilize also.
And I would agree with that. I think that's just another way of, extending that partnership with them, but then understanding that there's a little bit more effort on their part to kind of make things happen over there, so then we can reevaluate at the end of, when this contract's up, to see if we can't revisit the meal plan with them, and if they can get it together. But I would be in favor of that with a nominal fee.
Okay. Did Mr. Jesse did you have your hand up, sir? No, okay. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from anyone on the panel? Mr. Baird?
Yeah, as per the law director, we need to have some kind of remuneration, whether it's $1 or whatever. Otherwise, it's not a good contract, right? So we need to have that in there. So as long as that's there, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Baird. Well noted. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of establishing an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club to utilize the city's South Recreation Center. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into said agreement. Can I get a motion from Community Development?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from Finance?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet,
Second.
second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay. Okay, fifth item on the agenda is the matter of amending the exchange agreement with Elyria City Schools to include an additional parcel of property to be transferred from the city to the school district. This is a standing referral, and Assistant Law Director Bruning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. This matter is a continuation of our schools agreement, the exchange agreement. I'll call it a little bit of cleanup. If you recall, we set this up as a staggered closing, so as each school was being no longer used for school purposes, it would transfer to us. At the end of this whole process, the city property being transferred to the schools would be the last one. So this kind of got held off while the title company did the title work just recently, and it was determined that because of the way the legal description and parcels read on the property that we are giving the school district, which is on North Abbey Road, immediately adjacent to the new Northwood. It's that ravine property as you cross Abbey there, just going past the schools going north. Not park property, not being used for any city purposes, but because the legal description describes 3 individual parcels, it would be a lot simpler and less expensive for us to not have to go through a survey process, which would take additional weeks, possibly longer, to just donate an additional 2 parcels to the school districts as opposed to the one we had originally. That way, all 3 parcels covered under that one legal description would be transferred to the schools. Again, we're not using it for anything. This is just to fulfill our contractual obligations under that exchange agreement. So it's kind of technical, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has. Otherwise, I would appreciate that we pass this so we can move that along.
Okay, thank you, Assistant Law Director Bruning. Are there any questions from anyone on the panel? Okay, seeing none, I'll read the complete committee report. We have considered the matter of amending ordinance number 2020-61 and the exchange agreement with Elyria City Schools to include 2 additional parcels of property to be transferred from the city to the school district. This is an ordinance amending ordinance 2020-61 to include permanent parcel numbers 06-25-031-114-006 and 06-25-030-105-022 as parcels to be transferred to the city, to be transferred to the Elyria City School District pursuant to said ordinance and authorized an amendment to the exchange agreement authorized by said ordinance to go in effect at such transfer. Emergency clause does apply to meet contractual deadlines. Could I get a motion from Community Development?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Jesse, seconded by Mr. Sarah.
Question?
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from Finance?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis. Second by Mr. Gillette. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I see no further business for community development, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Jesse, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question?
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried, meeting adjourned.
Nobody's talking right now, so it doesn't matter.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to continue on with finance. First on the agenda is the approval of the finance meeting minutes of July 26, 2021. Can I get a motion?
So move approval.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Second item on the agenda, we consider the matter of inactive delinquent public utility accounts, a resolution authorizing said delinquent accounts to be certified to the Lorraine County Auditor's Office as per the attached list. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird. I think this is standard protocol. If Director Brubaker wants to weigh in, but I think this is just kind of standard that we use to send everything over.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Ms. Davis?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Can we get, Mrs. Connors to come to the mic, please?
Mrs. Connor is not here she's not here today, but I think if Director Brubaker might be here to answer your question, if you have.
Okay, after going over the list, Mr. Brubaker, this can't be 1 month, am I correct?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is actually about a month and a half. We did not have a committee meeting last month as Ms. Connor was out on quarantine. So we combined, it's probably about 6 weeks worth of properties.
My other question is, I'm gonna pull one off just for instance. When I'm looking at one that's over $3,000, and you said this is about 6 weeks. Did they have a leak?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, they didn't have, those are actually larger buildings that use much larger water, that we cannot shut the water off to like apartment buildings and whatnot. So when they do not pay, we have to lien the property. So when you're looking at the water usage there and you see those larger ones, those are larger buildings that consume much more water, and we cannot shut the water off in an apartment complex. So we lien the property.
It's a system that we have in place, Ms. Davis. I know we like to have everybody pay their water bills, and I know this ends up getting onto the tax duplicate. You know, if there's a way to better, you know, try to find out a better way to receive the payment, you know, we've had this conversations before. You know, we notify them, and unfortunately, this is where it ends up being, getting it onto the tax.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Pileski did mention, so when to answer your question, I guess I was under the impression that you were asking, were these from, there's multiple months that these folks did not pay that we go through our process for. The addresses you have are a accumulation of 6 weeks' worth of work that Ms. Connor has put in and the resolution board has put in, but the dollar amounts are not 6 weeks' worth. It could be multiple weeks.
Oh, okay.
Or multiple months. So I apologize for that.
That's better.
It's better to a point, right? All right, is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 3, we consider the matter of delinquent stormwater utility fees. A resolution authorizing said delinquent fees to be certified to the Lorraine County Office per the attached list, which will be accompanied on this committee report when it gets to the legislation. 122. Oh, it's 122 pages. That's exact. Actually, we don't want to print out 122 pages, so it'll be electronically on file there. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gillette. Is there any discussions? I think this is kind of the same thing that we kind of run through in regards to that.
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 4, we've considered the matter of delinquent grass mowing charges, a resolution authorizing said delinquent charges to be certified to Lorraine County Auditor's Office per the attached list. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gillette.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Again, this is just standard procedure. If Director Brubaker wants to weigh in it, but I think it's just standard things that we're just referring back over to the county because of lot.
Correct.
Mr. Gillette.
One quick comment. Mr. Brubaker's done an outstanding job with this program. I've had to call him a few times on a few serial offenders that are in our community, and hats off to Mr. Brubaker for his enforcement of this. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Ms. Rosado and Ms. Deary, we did send the most updated version of this. I think Michelle McCary got it, and your office got it as well for the exhibit for next Monday or Tuesday.
Item number 5, this is just going to be for discussion only for tonight. We've considered the matter of appropriating the American Rescue Plan funds. An ordinance authorizing the finance director to appropriate said funds for revenue replacement to the city of Elyria. Can I get a motion just to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tollett, second by Mr. Baird. Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Yes, and I'll also defer to Mr. Pileski, but the reason behind both of these was the mayor asked me to refer these for discussion to start looking at appropriating dollars from the ARP into our lost revenue, and I know there's a specific one on there for the municipal court as well, and I know Judge Bennett is here. But in our discussion, the mayor's thought process was to appropriate dollars. I think there was like $5.5 million that we had talked about in income replacement. We certainly do not have to appropriate all those dollars into income replacement, but the process was using some of those dollars to allocate towards police and fire, which are our two largest general fund expenditures to help alleviate the general fund in that area. Over today, there was discussion with Finance Director Pileski and Mr. Farrell and our office to have this as a discussion point, and hopefully at the finance meeting in September that we would be able to move forward with a plan. But as Mr. Pileski said, this is really something that, you know, council needs to be involved in a discussion on that. And we will also bring forth kind of some other ideas on that as well.
Yep. Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is a question for Mr. Pileski. So if we would replace $5.5 million into the general fund, we will still have to reappropriate that $5.5 million to where it needs to go out of that, correct?
Yeah, well, you have to think about it this way. We're not really moving money into the general fund, so the replacement revenue, there's a formula. So I've got that formula, and I've got it calculated at, as Mr. Brubaker stated, $5.5 million, actually $5,542,256. So that money, that revenue replacement, has to be spent on general services. And general services is probably the broadest category of the four under the ARP Act. So just let me read you what general services involves. Government services can include but are not limited to maintenance of infrastructure or pay-go spending for building new infrastructure, including roads, modernization of cybersecurity, including hardware, software, and protection of critical infrastructure, health services, environmental remediation, school or educational services, and the provision of police, fire, and other public services. So if council chooses to spend $5.5 million in replacement revenue, we have to appropriate it in the fund that we created, the ARP fund, and we have to drill this thing down to show how we're spending it. We just can't appropriate and say it's general services, because the reporting on this thing is just off the charts. I mean, it's given us headaches just looking at it. So I think the first step for council is decide if in fact you want to spend the entire 5.5 on general services. You can spend all of it on it. You can spend none of it on general services. You can spend the entire $9.3 million on sewer and water projects if you want. So you have to come up with a figure that you want to apply toward replacement revenue / general services, and then we're going to have to somehow divide that up into the functions that we so choose.
Can I follow that up? Let's say we decide, and this is a hypothetical question, to earmark 50% of the 5.5 for police and fire, because we know that that's, would it be better for you, for accounting purposes, for it to go directly to police and fire, or to go to police and fire through the general services budget? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Well, I think the police and fire is going to be a budget within the general services. So there's going to be a separate appropriation. If you decide to spend 50% between police and fire, there'll be a police department budget under this new fund, and a fire department budget.
So it really wouldn't matter if it went which way it went.
No, I mean,
if that was the final.
It's going to stay in the new special revenue fund. So we're not moving any of this money into the general fund. We're just, if you choose to appropriate it for this reason, we'll be paying for expenditures that would normally be taken out of the general fund. It'll be taken out of this replacement revenue monies in the ARP fund.
Okay.
Much like we did with the CARES Act.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, as I stated, 5.5 would be the max. You don't have to spend that much. You don't have to spend any of it on replacement services. That's entirely up to council. the items that don't require encumbrances, which would be payroll, have to be spent by December 31st, 2024. The items, say for example, if we did choose to spend some of this on infrastructure or a purchase of equipment, and you have to obviously encumber those monies, which is an open purchase order, that encumbrance has to be open by December 31st, 2024, and paid for by December 31st, 2026. So, there's three other categories, obviously, under this act, but this is just one, and my calculation is a little over $5.5 million in replacement revenue. And that includes lost revenues as far as income tax, other local taxes, court costs, muni court fines. It's all built into this calculation. And I know that there's a request from muni court as to about $90,000, which is well within the amount that they lost. So it's just a matter of determining how much of this $5.5 million do you want to appropriate toward general services, and then we need to break it down from there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Ms. Davis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Plesky. We have been talking about helping the citizens with their water bill. Now, it seems there's been an increase this month, and so I'm getting calls. So is there a way, because we had talked about it, that we could put like $2 million in the water budget so that we wouldn't be getting it, so the residents wouldn't be getting this increase for the next couple of years?
There's another category under the ARP Act for sewer and water infrastructure projects. So you can certainly spend money on those type of projects. That's not under the general services or under the revenue replacement. It's a separate category. But there is also a category called under economic hardships brought on by COVID, and I believe council has already passed ordinances setting aside $500,000 for small business program and $500,000 for essential services, which is helping people out with their utility bills. So you've already set that in motion, but if you're talking about trying to keep the rates from going up by paying for some projects, you can do that, yes. But that's not under the revenue replacement portion. It's a separate category.
But it is possible.
Yes.
Law Director Deary.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to you, Mr. Plesky. So, but that infrastructure, that money, that would be outside the $5.5 million?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to, again, we got $9.3 million in. You can use all $9.3 for water and sewer projects if you choose. But the $5.5 million is just a guideline of what revenue we lost or needed to be replaced due to COVID, and that particular pot of money, if you choose to appropriate it, needs to be spent on general government services, which I just gave you the definition of.
Right. And there's a guideline that the Finance Director's office, which was handed out this evening, which is, we should really read in its entirety and, we'll have more discussion on this, obviously, at the next Finance Committee meeting, because I think it's really involved in their guidelines and the procedures that they're wanting us to abide by, and that's what Mr. Pileski had prefaced in his comments earlier, that this is not like the CARES Act money where we had to expend this money at a certain time limit here. We have up until 2024 and then ultimately 2026 on some of these figures to get it paid for. So we have time into doing this, and this is why it's very critical to look at every option that we have that we can really find the best use for these dollars. At $18 million, ultimately, a little over $18 million is a lot of money to use, and that's why we got to spend it wisely and make really sure that have everything in place. And it's going to be fluid. I think we have those options in doing it. Yeah. Finance Director Pileski.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and keep in mind, we're going to go through this exercise next year as well, because we we received $9,390,000 this year. We're anticipating the same amount next year, so I'll have to recalculate the replacement revenue based on this year's revenues, next year. So there could be another pot of money or another dollar figure that can be appropriated next time around for replacement revenue.
Right.
But again, that's entirely up to the council on whether you want to spend it on that or all on infrastructure or small business programs, essential services, and then there's one category called premium pay for essential workers.
Right. So again, we're not in a big hurry. I mean, it is nice that we know that we have it. We got to do it right. This is an incredible amount of windfall of money that's coming our way, and we got to be, prudent about what we're spending it on. Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, one more question, Mr. Pileski. The infrastructure bill that has been approved in the Senate and circulating in the House appears that it will pass now in September, and that is estimated, I believe, to be $1.4 trillion that will also come back to us. And it's my personal opinion right now that we be real careful that we don't do a hard allocation on infrastructure projects until we see what comes from that bill.
Sure.
That we'll know about this October probably.
That's certainly one thing to take into consideration. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion in regards to this item? So again, if the Finance Director's office can make sure that we have everyone regarding this recent guidelines that was kind of handed out tonight, that all the other council members get it, whether it's in a PDF form or anything like that, that would be useful, that we can have it out there for them.
So, I think that obviously you don't have to appropriate, if you intended to spend the entire $5.5 million of the replacement revenue on general services, I don't really believe you have to appropriate all of it at one time. I mean, obviously we have until the end of 2024 to spend non-encumbered items, so this is going to extend over probably two or three budget years. So we can do it piecemeal. You can appropriate the $5.5 million all at once, and then whatever's not spent at the end of the year, then we would have to appropriate the difference between what was appropriated and what was spent in next year's budget. It's entirely up to council, but I do believe that when we decide what we're going to do, we've got to drill this thing down so it's easier to report, and this will be the focus of the Single Audit Act with our independent auditors, because this is going to far exceed the money we get for block grants. So this will be the focus of the Single Audit Act, single audit next year and the year after, and probably the year after that. So.
Right. Okay, very good. Item number 6. We've considered the matter of appropriating American Rescue Plan funds and ordinance authorizing the Finance Director to appropriate said funds for the revenue replacement to Elyria Municipal Court as requested by the municipal court judges and the clerk of courts, I would believe is how that would read. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet, second by Mr. Baird.
So if you want me to just start, I can give you the what they submitted, and then you can go from there. So they've requested $88,774 rounded, and it's got a number of items: replace computers, replace monitors, replace scanners, upgrade a network, replace printers, replace X-ray machine at front door, complete installation of AdGator and Google Cloud storage for 3 years. So this, I think the judge can speak better than I, but I believe this is just a continuation of the project that they started with the CARES Act money, and it certainly, as I said, their revenue loss was far greater than this, due to COVID, between court cost and fine money, so.
Sure. Thank you, Finance Director. Judge Bennett, if you'd like to come up and expound upon what's being asked by the Elyria Municipal Court.
Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Mayor Whitfield and Mark Ballard came to see Judge White and I on June 25th or thereabouts this year to tell us about these funds and to ask us to look at our revenue and see if these funds could help the court at all. It's pretty clear that we've lost a great deal of revenue. For a while, police officers weren't even writing simple tickets. We never were able to close our door. It was indicated to us by the Supreme Court that the courts could not close. So we were open for business, but business was certainly down from where it's been in the past. Before the COVID, we probably had 9,000 to 9,500 people a month come through the court. This month we had about 4,200, and it got as low as about 3,000. So people coming to the court means revenue, basically. They're paying tickets, paying fines, et cetera. So we lost in 19, 20, and 21, and we expected to continue through 22, maybe into 23, funds that we were able to replace. We were on a replacement plan for computers and other equipment, which we use a great deal of the time. That plan kind of got scrapped because the money wasn't there. So what we're requesting is just an opportunity to replace that part of the revenue so that we can upgrade the computers, replace the computers, the scanners, the x-ray machine. And as Ted said, our loss is much greater than what we've asked for, but we did the research. We found out exactly what the cost would be in the package that I've given to Ted and to the mayor, details all that, as to what each of these items would cost.
And I think, Judge, that, the request that you have here is minimal and much needed, but based on, what's been brought to light with the recent, these additional guidelines that we want to make sure that we have everything covered, I think we would be prudent in making sure that that's taken care of and everything. And I think over the next couple weeks or so, once we're able to digest this, we'll be able to kind of move forward with your recommendations that you're looking for. Is there any questions in regards to the judge, what he's been brought forward to us here tonight?
Some of the things we did cut the revenue on our own because our citizens have been in such a bad shape, so many people unemployed, people being evicted. We followed the federal guidelines and shut down evictions for quite a while. That was a revenue loss, obviously. We made a decision that we would limit any minor misdemeanor fines, basically your traffic tickets, those kind of things, to $10. Those fines could be as much as $150. So we put a program in place that if someone came to court, wanted to take care of their case, instead of a $150 fine, they paid a $10 fine in their court costs. The court costs are important to us because we are allowed to have special funds, as Ted can tell you. So we have certain amounts of court costs that are allocated to certain projects, security, the payment of the building, the beautiful courthouse that we have is paid for through court costs. So we are lucky that we have that option. We didn't want to lose as much of the court costs as we could because it funded so much of what we do over there. So we did cut down on the fine money, which obviously cuts down on revenue for the city and for us and for the state. But we thought that was the best thing to do as public servants, that we recognize the suffering of our citizens and found what we thought was at least some way to help alleviate some of those issues that people have. We kind of did it to ourselves, but once we met with the mayor, we were ready to end that program July the 4th. I'm glad we didn't, because COVID's kind of back and we're seeing the same kind of thing. And he asked that we continue it at least through the end of the year, and that's what we decided to do. So we know the money's going to be down in 2021. There's no question about that.
Right. Any other questions for Judge Bennett in regards to this? Okay. Judge, we'll keep you informed on how things are progressing and moving forward.
I brought some informational items that if somebody can pass these out to council. We have a number of programs that I don't think folks over here are aware of. We have a program called Elyria Drives, where we help people that have driver's license problems get valid, and we've been very, very successful with that. Obviously, all of us know if you live out here in Elyria or Lorain County, there's no public transportation. So if you're going to work, you really have to be able to drive. And I can't tell you the number of people that come to court that have been picked up for driving under suspension, and it's an endless cycle. They can owe thousands of dollars in reinstatement fees for simply driving without a license. And I'm not belittling that or downgrading that. It's a serious offense. But we've set up these programs. There's one about how to seal your record, and that's the way that some people are blocked from employment. So we have a program for that. We have a program that we've worked with the faith community about what to do in the event you have a warrant, how you take care of the warrant, so that the police aren't coming at your house at 2 o'clock in the morning and dragging you out of bed in handcuffs. And the last one in that package is a program that we worked with the Bar Association to help people, landlords and tenants, access funds to keep evictions from happening. So that's all happening across the street. You guys really don't have that contact with us to know, but I thought I'd bring those tonight and share.
We appreciate
in case
that.
some of your constituents could use some of those programs.
Very good. We appreciate that, Judge. Thank you very much. All right.
Mr. Chair, just one other bit of information. So we received $9,390,406 in this ARP money. So if you do choose to budget $5,542,256 of replacement revenue for general services, and you factor in the $500,000 that you already discussed for essential services program and $500,000 for small business programs, that still leaves $2,848,150 that would have to be allocated somewhere. So.
Thank you, Finance Director Plesky. Okay, number 7. We've considered the matter of the wastewater and wastewater infrastructure grant ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit applications for the water and wastewater infrastructure grant and accept if offered. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few weeks ago, the state of Ohio, they notified the locals in the state of a grant opportunity out there, $250 million toward water and wastewater projects within the state of Ohio. The funding is being funded through the American Rescue Plan. At this time, we're just looking to hopefully get a piece of the pie and apply for these grants. We have a number of projects on the water and wastewater side where we want to apply for. They're all projects that we need to get done anyways. So the more they can help pay for it, the more it will help control our rates in the future. So the grant program there's not a lot of information about the grant program at this time. There are caps. They have a point system as far as how they're going to award these grants. But at this time, it's still early in the infancy of the grant program, but they're requesting that people submit applications for the grants. We're on the wastewater side, we were looking to submit the Phase 1D and 2N of the East Side Relief Sewer Project. That's a $15 million project. The grant, it caps out at $5 million, but there's another $5 million they will possibly pay for, provided the local is a economically depressed city, which we qualify for. So we have a good chance of getting funding towards a project like that. We did submit or like to submit for the plant, the headworks. And I know Sam wants to submit a few projects on the water side. I believe it's the Clark Street Water Tower, which we are already designing and looking to construct soon, as well as a study for improvements at the plant. Once again, these are projects we need to get done. And it's really time sensitive as far as getting the applications in as fast as possible.
All right, Mr. Jacob?
Just like Engineer Snyder said, the water projects are shovel-ready. We actually submitted the paperwork because it's pretty much first come, first serve. You get points, like John said, for the city. The water projects are going to be 10% city funded. You get extra points if the city throws in money. So we put in about $1,750,000 worth of, from 2 projects. We're working on a number of other ones that get submitted in the next couple months.
Yep. This is good stuff that we can utilize and bring our systems up to date. So through Mr. Jacob or Mr. Schneider, is there a match or is this just a grant? What's the?
The program doesn't require a match, but they encourage a match because this way it can spread out the dollars. So at this time, we don't know what those are because we don't have dollar figures on some of the projects as far as costs, as well as what the state would be willing to fund at this time. Right now, we're just looking to apply. The applications, if you apply, you're not required to take them if there's some hidden language in there that we don't like, but we would like to apply.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Well, Director Deary.
Yes, Mr. Attorney Brunig's got some questions as well from a legislative standpoint. So I understand that this grant process doesn't require a match, but if the city is going to utilize that to increase our odds, so to speak, then we need to know what we're, I guess, offering so that we can prepare the legislation, for starters. And then I believe Mr. Brunig has some more.
Thanks, Director, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify that a little bit, and Director, you're absolutely right, and that's what I was coming up here to say, but the engineer and I had an off-the-record conversation about this very issue just a few minutes ago. I'm the one who asked this to be dual referred because I didn't know what that match was going to be, and if we were going to encumber this with a financial obligation, financial match on the part of the city for the purpose of drafting legislation, we obviously want to know what that is. Given that they don't yet know what that dollar amount is, my suggestion would be to the committee is let's revise the committee report to authorize the application for the grant, and then we'd have to come back later after they actually know what their numbers are and authorize the acceptance of the grant. That way we can build in that dollar amount match from the city. We'll know exactly what it is at that time. At this point, we can authorize the application. Normally, we do it both in one, where we authorize the application for and accept if offered this grant. We can't necessarily advise that at this juncture because we don't know what that dollar match is going to be. At a later point, we will, and we can bring, additional legislation in, but for now, I would ask that you would revise the committee report accordingly.
My only other question is this just a singular grant, or are there going to be multiple grant applications, one for water, one for wastewater, several different projects?
There will be multiple projects
then,
on both sides.
Then, Mr. Brunig, are we going to need to have multiple pieces of legislation then? Since it sounds to me like this is not a single grant application.
Well, and if it's for water, some are wastewater, some are wastewater, or some are water, then they're theoretically they're benefiting different funds. So I would think that, yes, we would absolutely need different pieces of legislation for each one. So we're going to want to break down from each grant. Do we have, not the dollar figures necessarily, but how many of these separate applications are we going to be submitting? So we need to know that for the legislation.
We would need to know that, I guess.
Yeah, like tonight. So I understand time's of the essence, and perhaps these are already in the works, but how many do you guys have in the works? How many are you sending out? You got 3? We need to know what those 3 are, because we'll need 3 ordinances.
Right now, for water, there's 2 applications that were sent out. One for Clark Street Water Tower.
Okay.
I believe the money was already appropriated for that. Yes. And one for the study at the water treatment plant.
When you say money was appropriated, do you mean for the project itself, or, okay. And I'm sorry,
You get points if your project's ready to go within 6 months. With
Understood.
engineering and everything, so
gotcha.
that's why we did that.
And there's two projects on the wastewater side. There's Phase 1D and 2N for the east side relief sewer, and then there's the Headworks project at the wastewater plant.
So 2 wastewater and 2 water, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So two different wastewater applications, 2 different water applications. We can probably do this in 2 ordinances for the 2 different funds and two authorizations for each fund.
All emergency.
Right.
But we may be, through the chair, we may be applying for more money in the upcoming months.
All right. Then I would advise that you're going to need to come back
Right.
for a new, for new legislation to address those.
So based on what was presented here before us, I guess my thing would be is, you know, in amending this, the committee report based on like the conversations that were just had, is it something, making sure that we have everything in place as far as doing something right before, as laid before us, amending it then, or is it something that should be just taking, I just want to make sure we get it right, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
No, I think you can amend, you've got a motion on the floor. I think you can amend that motion to authorize the application for 2 water and 2 wastewater applications, but not the approval of either one of those at this juncture. So we would take out the, you know, except if offered portion of that language in the committee report.
Authorizing the mayor to submit application for this grant. Emergency.
All right, so we're going to amend the committee report. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit applications for the water and wastewater infrastructure grant and legislation authorizing mayor to submit said applications. Can I get a motion to get it on, an emergency applies?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Gillette, second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Well, Mr. Oswald has a question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is kind of to piggyback on what Mrs. Davis was saying. If we do happen to get these funds for like that, the sewer relief project and this, is this going to help some, like with our water rates and sewer rates, because we're not paying for that relief project on down the road, so we don't have to keep adding? Thank you.
In regards to the rates, as far as will it help? Yes. I mean, every penny we get in grants will help the rates. The rates are pretty much a living, breathing document. We're going to be going through these rates for the next 30 years in small increments and figuring out every couple of years what the rates will be or not be based on what grants we have, what water usage, or what water we sell out there. There's lots of factors that control the rates. So every penny does help.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 8, we've considered the matter of finding the city has property that is no longer needed or unfit for public use, a resolution authorizing the safety service director to declare said property no longer needed for or unfit for public use per the attached list. Can I get a motion to get on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet. Second by Ms. Davis. Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll find on the list multiple brands, styles of the SCBA units, the breathing units that our fire department uses. We would like to dispose of these units either by scrap or selling them for scrap. We will be coming back to council in a couple weeks because we will need to purchase newer versions of these, but these are the ones that are currently not being used by our fire department. And Chief Pernesti came to me and said they have this stuff sitting around and they'd like to get rid of it. And any dollars that we do accumulate from this, we could potentially, as I talked to the finance director for, use towards the purchase of new units.
Okay. Any questions regarding that?
Question.
Questions have been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. And this is just the complementary ordinance that goes along with that. To consider the matter of the city to dispose the property that is no longer needed or unfit for public use, an ordinance authorizing the safety service director to dispose of by the best means possible city property that is no longer needed or unfit for public use per the attached list. Can I get a motion to get the?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet. Second by Mr. Baer. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 9. We've considered the matter of a public information officer and an ordinance authorizing the addition of a position of a public information officer to the Safety Service Department. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor? Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Human Resources, Ms. Yusefi.
Thank you. We're looking to add the position of public information officer. It's going to establish a communication plan and carry out that plan through the use of press releases, crisis communication, website and social media maintenance, and serve as an advisor to the mayor and to the safety service director. This will allow the city to communicate proactively rather than reactively when we're looking at communications for the residents. Currently, this work is being done by outside consultants and some by the mayor, so there'll be some savings there. Funds are available for this position. I did verify that with Finance Director Politsky earlier today. And based on the qualifications that are required and the duties of the position, I've ranked it into the salary grade of C52. Other positions in this grade are Community Development Manager, Assistant City Engineer, IT Manager, and Operations Manager.
Okay. So currently we have a consultant, and basically what you were saying is the mayor doing this work already.
That's
but
correct.
Is it more geared for the safety services? Because is it my understanding, is there a communications that the police and fire departments have a communications when they release this information, whether it's sensitive information, that they kind of have their report, and then it's kind of expressed it that way? I guess my thing is that if this is something that's already in place within those two departments, why would we want to move forward with this?
Well, this is actually much bigger than just that, crisis communication for when we have a police or fire incident or whatever that occurs. This is going to be a more global communication plan where we're really able to communicate with our residents on a regular basis, you know, have nice newsletters, you know, other things like that, just to be able to have some place that's keeping track of when there's complaints coming in and that kind of thing, and being able to react to that.
Mhm. I'm not very active on social media. I can say that. And then, you know, sometimes I think it's a good thing. To me, I know that the mayor is out there and that he's at the forefront of a lot of this as far as, you know, informing the residents about what's kind of going on over and through. And I think, to me, that's a information that he is supplying at the forefront of all this. And I think, you know, he does a good job at that. And, you know, he's on, you know, social media and kind of informing what's kind of going on. And I don't think that should change in regards to that, for him being the face of this. And so for a public information officer, to me, I don't know if, you know, I think we just continue on with what's going on.
Through the chair.
Committee.
If I could, through the chair.
Sure. Mr. Williams?
Yes, so this is in line with a project manager. What we presently have is the safety service components, and recent employee Rin was navigating many of these tasks also. But our determination was based on the work that's done, it didn't need to be at that high of a salary level. So this is much of the work that she was doing. Also, there is some coordinating that we've been doing with police, especially in communication. And the position fills somewhat of a project director. The current big project piece is having someone with communication expertise background. That's in writing, that's in public relations, that's in how we communicate with every element, how we communicate with council, how we communicate with the community, how we communicate departmentally. So the role is much more expansive. It is in the neighborhood of projects, but again, we introduce it at this level because we don't believe we should be paying the premium that is in the 65 category. So that was one of the pieces, is what existed was a higher salary, and we thought we could get this work done at a quality level without having to be in that price category. So that was the purpose of introducing it at this level.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mr. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Although I recognize the importance of everything that's described here, anytime we're talking about adding a position, it has a ripple effect for every subsequent year in terms of budget. And I'm thinking about a similar situation for my colleagues who were on council about 5 years ago. We debated over several years whether or not we should create the position of Economic Development Director, and council was never in majority agreement that we should do that. I think in reality right now, in effect, I think we have an Economic Development Director through Dawn Calvert. So that need was filled through our current safety service personnel. I have concerns about adding a position at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse. Any other? Ms. Davis?
Through you, the chair, you mentioned that we were paying for an outsource of, so how much are we paying the outsource company for doing public information?
I don't have that number with me. I'm sorry.
So we paying somebody. So you're trying to eliminate them and the mayor?
Yes, and free up the mayor's time too for doing other things.
So, okay, then how long has this been going on? Because Ren hasn't been gone that long. So when did we get this outsourced public relation officer? And how much are they doing? What are they doing?
Through you, Mr.
Director
Chair,
Deary.
I would say this was a contract that was, and please, anybody from the administration correct me if I'm wrong, it was short-term. I anticipated it to be a short-term contract. This person was brought on within the last 6 weeks or so, I believe. And I don't want to put Mr. Plesky on the spot, but I believe he could probably tell you what the amount was. I don't recall it off the top of my head, but the contract was reviewed by my office. But it was anticipated to be short-term in nature, obviously, or otherwise it would have come before council.
Through you, Mr. Chair, who's the contract with?
Right now, we're
Mayor.
working with Jen Kennedy, and through your chair, we're working with Jen Kennedy, but if you don't mind, I'd like to just take a step back on the conversation. I think y'all did a decent job. I was trying to just let it play out with my team, but, so within the Safety Service Department, you have this huge gap between administrative staff and Assistant Safety Service Director, where an administrative staff right now caps out, I want to say around $40,000. And then an Assistant Safety Service Director starts around 90. So there's nothing in the middle there for somebody who's not necessarily at the experience level and the talent level to have that 90,000 salary, but they deserve more pay than administrative because they're not just doing administrative work. So we could continue down this path, which we heard feedback before that, hey, why are we paying a premium for this? So this is our resolution to Councilman Jesse and others who had voiced concern in the past around salary ranges to come back and say, hey, give us another tool to play with, because right now the only tool we have is starting at 90 up here or capping out at 45, and there's this huge gap in terms of project management. And then to the point around safety service communications, as was mentioned, I'm doing a lot of the communications work now, but the city needs to establish its own voice. You know, we have 53,000 residents right in our city, and who's responsible for communicating to them? Who's responsible to make sure people know when a road is closed, to know when there's a power line down, to handle when, we talked about crisis communications. I'm not going to speak publicly about it, but but there's a lot of crises we deal with behind the scenes, and who's going to be responsible for managing those things? So again, to Councilman Jesse's point, what we did with the economic development director is we utilized one of the assistant safety service slides to put someone in the role of leading our economic development work through Dawn Calvert. Part of that responsibility is not just external work, but it's also internally managing departments that touch business. We could do the same thing with this communications role, but again, now we're starting at 90,000, which the money is there, but we're starting at this high of a salary. So our hope was to come to you to get a new classification within safety service so that somebody would have something to work their way to and not jump from an administrative staff to an assistant safety service director making 90,000, to create something in the middle there that's more reasonable in terms of that transition. So that's what the request is.
Okay. Well, I could just say that, Mayor, I don't think there's a need for it, personally. I think we can do with Mr. Williams is in that capacity to help out and do that, or others within your department.
To manage a website, to manage social media, to produce press releases, this is a profession. There's people, you think about Amy Higgins at Elyria City Schools, this is a profession that people have that is important to communicate to your constituents, and to just say it's not needed, to me, it's hard for me to even hear that and know that we have 53,000 residents that need to be communicated with. And we have a school district with 6,000 students who has someone in this position making sure parents are being communicated with. I think similar to the economic development pushback, if we want to grow as a city, we need to have somebody doing economic development work. If we want the message around our city and we want clear communication and not misinformation that's being put out there, and I know you all deal with misinformation, the emails that you get sent, and you have to clarify information. This is a real need. If you're going to run a highly functioning organization, you need someone focused on communications. And again, I'm doing the work primarily. The consultant we have right now is assisting with like the newsletter design, but ultimately you need someone in-house who's moving with the rest of the staff, meeting with community development, seeing what's going on, meeting with fire, meeting with police. If we're going to change the image of this city, we need somebody who's focused on the communications effort. So I'll leave it at that, but we'll proceed. Whatever tools you leave us, we'll proceed with.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there any further comments in regards to what's been brought by the mayor's input? Mr. Tolet.
I would be more receptive. I would recommend that we table this and a full job description be presented to this committee at a later date. I think the clarification of the job duties more in detail would assist us. So my recommendation would be to table this for right now. Also, specific on what fund this would come out of to pay for it. Because, again, with what's happening with our budget, we need to look at that as well.
Very good. All right, with that being said, we'll put it in pending items. If Ms. Yousefi and the administration can kind of put something together as expressed in the comments by the mayor and Ms. Yousefi, and where the funds are going to be coming from, we'll entertain this at a later date. And number 10, we've considered the matter of a cleanup and/or changes to the salary ordinance to section 165.33. An ordinance authorizing the said changes to the salary ordinance. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Mr. Yousefi.
There was just some changes we wanted to make to the, section 165.33, in the.
Can you pull the mic closer? I'm sorry.
Sure. Just some changes we wanted to make in section 165.33. Some of it is cleanup information. So, for example, I have a red line in your packet there. So under 165.33C2, we want to make it clear that the increase in the step comes with the person's anniversary date. In the next section, if an employee is initially hired into a step that surpasses her years of service, that section really has never been utilized. We've not operated in that way, so that we'd like to make sure that the salary ordinance is going to go along with what actually happens in reality. And then in section 165.33C4, which will become 3, there was just a typo, I think, in the reference section.
Okay. So those are the, based on these recommendations, you're looking at what to modify. Okay. Okay. Is there any questions in regards to either from the committee here? Some cleanup of here with the language. Ms. Davis?
Yes, when going over it, I noticed the word of approval by Personnel Placement Committee. Now that, so is they taking it away from somebody and placing it, you getting a special committee, or I'm not understanding this.
I don't know if Law Director Deary or Ms. Yousefi want to comment or weigh in on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, the Personnel Placement Committee has been in existence for quite a long time.
Okay.
So, for instance, if Mr. Pulaski or myself or Mr. Brubaker were to want to bump somebody up more than one step, say, I have a brand new employee, I don't want to start them at the initial step. I think based on their education or their experience or combination thereof, that they should say start at over and above step 3. Then I would make a request to the Personnel Placement Committee that has, I'm going to try to rely on my memory here. Mr. Pulaski's on it, I believe the mayor, Safety Service Director, and then I would go and I would explain why I believe that this person should be placed at a higher step than step 3. But the Personnel Placement Committee, that's been in existence for a very long time. And the referral is not asking to change that process.
Right. So is it just the Personnel Placement Committee, just the 3 members you mentioned? Is the Law Director, are you on that?
No,
Okay.
I'm not actually. No. I think it's been around for decades, so.
Mr. Plesky, in regards to this, is there anything that you see in question or no, or weighing in on this?
Nope, I really don't have any issue with it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 11, we've considered the matter of amending the IAFF salary exhibit to include a new position of the EMT firefighter, Fire Prevention Bureau Inspector, in order to authorize the addition of said position. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. I believe Mr. Farrell's going to weigh in, and then Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The administration and the fire union is changing the way they're operating the Fire Prevention Bureau, and the best way for the payroll to handle it would be to create this new position. If there's any operational questions, I'd defer to the Safety Service Director. But
Mr. Brubaker, if you want to expound upon it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, the administration and IFF came to an MOU due to staffing issues within the fire department, making sure that we get enough firefighters to meet the minimum situation of 13 personnel on duty. And we thought that by placing the fire inspector, and I shared this with you probably a month or 6 weeks ago, by placing the fire and bureau inspector on shift, so we would have one on shift every day of the week, 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, would allow us to put two of the younger fire prevention bureaus that were literally less than 2 years on the fire department back into the count to help reduce, to make sure that we had the minimum manning, but B is to allow us to reduce overtime. Now, this isn't something you're going to see immediate, right now results. It is a process. And in order to do that, like Mr. Farrell said, we just created this position. But what it's allowed us to do is actually put, instead of having firefighters that are a year off their probation and they go into this bureau, it allows us to put more senior members who have a lot more experience within the fire department within the bureau. And Chief Pernesti was in favor of this, as well as the fire marshal, Mr. Gall.
Any questions for Mr. Brubaker or Mr. Farrell? If not, I'll call for the question. Question been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Oh. Is this an emergency, Mr.?
I will defer, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Farrell. I would suggest that it should be, because we are in that mode. So the sooner we get that, the better it's going to benefit the finance director's office.
Mr. Farrell?
yes, through you, Chairman. I guess I'll concur if that's possible. That way we're not in a retroactive pay situation. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Item number 12. We've considered the matter of estimating the amount of active, inactive, and interim funds to be awarded and deposited for a 5-year period. A resolution authorizing the finance director to estimate the said funds to be awarded and deposited for the 5-year period beginning December 1st, 2021. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gillette. Finance Director Plesky or Mr. Farrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every 5 years, municipalities in Ohio are required by Section 135.01 of the Ohio Revised Code, otherwise known as the Uniform Depository Act, to enter into new depository agreements for a 5-year period. And our period would begin December 1, 2021, and ending 5 years later on November 30th, 2026. So basically, the resolution would estimate the amount of inactive, active, and interim funds that may be available to deposit into the account, into bank accounts. So I have the inactive estimated at $5 million, which is the same as it was the last 5-year period. the amount of interim funds at 50 million and the amount of active funds at 50 million. Plan on advertising in the newspaper and having the any banks that are interested to turn in their request by October 15th, 2021. At that time, then we will bring it back to finance to declare whichever banks are interested to be a depository, and then we'll pass a second piece of legislation to declare the banks as a public depository of the city. So basically, it's every 5 years we do this.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Plesky? No? Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carried. Last item on the agenda. We consider the matter of the 2021 permanent appropriation changes in ordinance authorizing to amend the 2021 permanent appropriation ordinance number 2021-50 as per the attached. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gillette. Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 5 this evening. In the sanitation fund, an increase of $66,644 in their capital outlay. This is for the purchase of a new Ford F-450 dump truck and a brush bandit chipper. Part of this equipment, the total cost is $112,945, and $78,649 is going to be reimbursed with grant monies from the Ohio EPA. And the last 4 are all from the general fund. The first is transferring money in cemeteries department out of salary and wages, reduction of $21,000. We needed some monies in benefit and pension to cover the balance of the year, hopefully, and then there's a request for $15,000 in operating and maintenance for setting of headstones in the city cemeteries. And then in the CM central maintenance garage, we're reducing salary and wages by $90,000 and the benefit and pension account by $15,000 and increasing the operating and maintenance by $255,000. And this really is necessitated by the increase in the gas prices for the year. And so some of this money, the 105 is a transfer, and then there's an additional $150,000 that is based on the increase in the revenue estimate. In the police department, we're reducing the salary and wages by $20,000 in the general fund, and that money will be added to the operating and maintenance account in the civil service department. And this is to appropriate additional monies for upcoming tests for the position of the police chief and any other tests that were needed in the police department as a result of the promotion of any candidate that were to take the chief's position. And the last change is an increase of $383,200 in the fire department's salary and wages. And this is to appropriate additional monies for the severance payout and unused sick and vacation for Chief Mack, as well as this year it seemed to be a larger number of firefighters selling back their floating holiday time as allowed by their contract. So that requires this additional $383,200.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Is there any questions for Mr. Farrell in regards to the amendments of the being brought before us here? No. Question has been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. If there's nothing more to come before this committee, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gillette. Any further discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.